Hello team! In this lesson we are going to talk about scope management and how to work with requirements. In general, scope management is a huge topic that we will learn during multiple lessons in my project management course. But today we will focus on the key things of the scope definition and requirements description and how ChatGPT can help us with this and boost our productivity. We are going to start the lesson from the overview of what are possible formats for requirements exist and how requirements can be stored. We will dedicate special attention to such format as feature specification. I am going to explain you what it is and what it consists of. In this lesson we will continue working with our imaginary e-commerce project, and I am going to show you the feature that we are going to describe as requirements. Together we will create feature specification using help of ChatGPT. Also we will generate user story. I am going to show you BDD format of functional requirements that are usually used to describe requirements in user story on my projects. Also we will talk about functional and non-functional requirements. We will document feature specification in the Confluence. And I am also going to show you how to connect Jira project to Confluence space and configure Jira macro on the Confluence page. At the end of the lesson we are going to review special home tasks that I prepared for you that will help you to get more experience of working with requirements, Confluence, Jira, and ChatGPT. Let's start our lesson. And in order to understand the topic better, we need to make one step back and understand how requirements are gathered and where they are stored on projects usually. In software development projects, requirements are typically described using a variety of documents and formats, depending on the project's methodology, complexity, and the preferences of the development team and stakeholders. Some common formats for describing requirements include user stories. User stories are short, informal descriptions of a feature from the perspective of a user or stakeholder. They follow a simple template. As a user, I want, description of an action, so that, and description of a benefit. User stories are often used in agile methodologies like Scrum and Kanban. Feature specifications. Feature specifications provide a detailed description of a specific feature or functionality. They outline the purpose, scope, behavior, user interaction, and other relevant details. These documents are typically more detailed and structured than user stories. Use cases. Use cases describe interactions between users and the system. They outline the steps a user takes to achieve a specific goal and describe how the system should respond in various scenarios. Functional requirements. Functional requirements describe what the software system should do. They specify specific behaviors, operations, and interactions the system must support. These requirements are often structured in a list or table format. Non-functional requirements. Non-functional requirements define attributes of the system such as performance, scalability, security, and usability. These requirements address how the system should perform rather than what it should do. Later in this lesson, we are going to make a deep dive to understand what non-functional requirements are. Wireframes and mockups. Visual representations of the user interface, such as wireframes and mockups, can help us to illustrate the design and layout of the software. This can help us in clarification of design and usability requirements. Prototypes. In some cases, prototypes or proof of concept implementations might be used to demonstrate and validate requirements before full development begins. Flowcharts and diagrams. Flowcharts, activity diagrams, sequence diagrams, and other visual tools can help illustrate complex processes, workflows, and interactions. Acceptance criteria. For each requirement, acceptance criteria defines the conditions that must be met for the requirement to be considered complete. They help ensure that the implemented feature meets the intended functionality. Documentation. Comprehensive documentation can include user manuals, system architecture diagrams, API documentation, and other technical documents that outline how the software works and how to use it. Epics. In simple words, we can call epics as large user stories that encapsulate broader themes or areas of functionality. They are broken down into smaller features, user stories, or tasks during backlog refinement. Product backlog. Product backlog is a dynamic list of all desired features, enhancements, and bug fixes for a project. It's often organized and prioritized to guide development. The choice of format often depends on the development methodology being used, either it is agile, waterfall, etc., the complexity of the project, and the communication preferences of the team and stakeholders. Many modern development teams use a combination of these formats to ensure a clear and comprehensive understanding of project requirements. For example, you can use feature specifications, epics, user stories, API documentation, and even something more, and requirements will be captured in different sources with a different level of granularity and details. Definitely, it will be hard for me to show you examples of all possible formats where requirements can be stored in one lesson. But during the course, we'll gradually learn different formats. And let me start from explaining of feature specification. In more complex applications, it can be helpful to create feature specifications to cover behavior on specific pages, components, or modules. This approach provides a detailed breakdown of the behavior for each part of the application. Regardless of the level of granularity you choose, feature specifications typically include information such as description of the feature, acceptance criteria, expected behavior and outcomes, user interactions and inputs, preconditions and postconditions, error handling, and edge cases. Ultimately, the approach to creating feature specifications depends on the development methodology, the team's preference, and level of detail required to accurately communicate the desired functionality to the development team. Let me start screen sharing, and I will show you how we can create feature specification. Let me explain you what we are going to do now. We will generate feature specification for one feature for one page. You will understand how to do this, and you will have a homework to create enough feature specifications to cover requirements for our imaginary project. I will share with you specific home task after the lesson. In the current example, I want to generate feature specification for the product listing page. Let me show you what a product listing page is on the example of the Amazon online shop in order to give you more context. The product listing page in an e-commerce app is a crucial component that presents a collection of products available for purchase to the users. This page serves as a gateway for customers to browse and explore the various products offered by the online store. Let me show you the product listing page functionality on the example of Amazon and explain what elements product listing page usually includes. Product thumbnails. The page displays a grid or list of product thumbnails, each representing a different item available for sale. These thumbnails often include images, titles, and brief descriptions. Sorting and filtering. Users can sort and filter the product list based on various criteria such as price, popularity, brand, size, color, and more. This enables them to refine their search and find products that meet their preferences. Product details. Users can click on product thumbnail to view more detailed information about product, including its price, specification, availability, user reviews, and any other relevant details. Product details page is a separate page and will be described separately. But the transition from product listing page to product details page is a functional requirement that we need to consider. Search bar. A search bar at the top of the page allows users to search for specific products or keywords, helping them quickly find what they are looking for. And I agree that search bar is not a part of the product listing page itself, and it is a separate component, but it has super important business connection with product listing page, because for end users, search bar is one of the key elements to access product listing page. Pagination. In case there are a large number of products on the page, pagination or infinite scrolling may be used to break up the list into manageable chunks, allowing users to navigate through multiple pages of products. Add to cart or add to wishlist. Users can often add products to their shopping cart or wishlist directly from the product listing page, allowing them to keep track of items they're interested in. But as you can see, such feature is not available on Amazon. It is super strange, because adding product to the cart from the product listing page streamlines purchase experience. I remember that on one of my projects we even did investigation of how much more in sales we get after providing user with opportunity to buy product or add to the cart directly from the product listing page. It is interesting business question. You can explore it separately. So now when you understand what a product listing page is and understand the feature in general, let's ask ChatGPT to generate for us feature specification for product listing page. Please generate feature specification document for the product listing page and product list component. PLP should support showing product thumbnails, switch view between list and grid, sorting, generate standard sorting options and requirements, filtering, come up with filtering options as many as you can think of, brief product details, search bar, pagination, add to cart, add to wish list next to the product, responsive designs that should be supported on tablets in portrait landscape mode and on mobile. Make sure that feature specification contains feature description, acceptance criteria, expected behavior and outcomes, described user interactions and inputs, preconditions and postconditions, error handling scenarios, and edge cases. Take a look at this long text that I wrote. We discussed everything what is written here, agree? We discussed features of the product listing page that I would like to implement. I also explained you what feature specifications should contain, and I just summarized everything in one query to GPT. Remember, the more details you provide, the more detailed recommendation you will be able to receive from ChatGPT. And we received functional specification. Let me ask ChatGPT the following request. Based on the functional specification generated, generate titles of user stories needed to implement this feature. Break down user stories in the way each user story would take up to 5 days to implement and test maximum. And here I have a list of user stories generated. Can you see how cool it is and how ChatGPT can boost our productivity? In the course, I also have another lesson where I show how you can generate user stories literally by posting message in Slack or in any other messenger. So far, we are doing it with the help of ChatGPT web application, but believe me, you are going to like what I prepared for you in the course. Of course, like I said, ChatGPT is a calculator for your brain. It can help you to be more productive. But still, I recommend you to verify manually the content. Of course, there are cases when you need to add some specific details, but I believe you would agree with me that anyway, to add few details is easier than write all acceptance criteria from scratch. And in case you want to support team with helping them to describe user stories, you can do this with the help of ChatGPT. It is obvious that ChatGPT generated a brief overview of the user stories, but we can ask to add more details. For example, like this. Generate a full description for the new user story. Describe all the details, requirements, acceptance criteria, edge cases for the user story with title Display Product Thumbnails. And here I have the complete user story description that I can copy and paste to the Jira. If you need to customize the format of requirements, you can ask ChatGPT about this too. For example, please regenerate the details for the same user story, but use BDD format to describe functional requirements. If you are not familiar with the BDD practice, let me briefly explain you what it is. Behavior-driven development is a software development methodology that emphasizes collaboration between technical and non-technical team members. BDD focuses on defining the desired behavior of a system through clear and concise scenarios written in natural language format. These scenarios, often expressed in the given then format, serve as a living documentation that guides development and testing. BDD encourages a shared understanding of requirements, promotes communication, and ensures that software features align with user needs. It fosters a holistic approach where business goals, user expectations, and technical implementation are harmonized to deliver high-quality, user-centric software. I personally like BDD and I use BDD on all my projects, and I encourage team to use this style of functional requirements description. Because when you write requirements according to this format, you start asking the right questions. Try it yourself and understand how BDD may bring the discipline to the requirements description process. I'm looking at everything what was generated and I feel like we're missing something. How do you think? What we have missed? I don't feel like we have enough non-functional requirements described here. But first, let's understand what are non-functional requirements and how they are different from functional requirements. Functional and non-functional requirements are key components in the process of defining and specifying the needs of a software project. They provide a comprehensive understanding of what the software should achieve and how it should perform. Here's a breakdown of both types of requirements. Functional requirements. Functional requirements describe the specific functionalities, features, and capabilities that the software must possess. They outline what the software is supposed to do in terms of its interactions with users, other software components, and external systems. Functional requirements are essentially the what of the software project. Example of a functional requirement for an e-commerce website. Users should be able to add products to their shopping cart and proceed to checkout. This is example of functional requirement. Non-functional requirements are characteristics or qualities that the software must possess beyond its specific functionalities. They address how the software should perform in terms of its performance, usability, security, and other aspects. Non-functional requirements focus on the how of the software project. Example of non-functional requirement for the same e-commerce website. The website should load within 3 seconds on average to provide a smooth user experience. Variety of functional requirements is unlimited, and it is hard to name them all, because each system is unique. Thus, we have unlimited amount of potential functional requirements in theory. But when we talk about non-functional requirements, usually we mean a common group of requirements. On this slide, I added a list of the most popular non-functional requirements with examples of how they can be described on your project. Let me make a brief overview. It can be performance. This may include evaluation of the response time, throughput, scalability. Availability. This can be evaluated through the uptime and redundancy. Reliability. Reliability that can be measured in mean time between failures and mean time to recovery. Security. Usability. This non-functional requirement is about user interface consistency and user-friendly error messages, for example. Scalability. The system should be able to scale both by adding more servers, that is horizontal scalability, and by improving server capacity, vertical scalability. Compatibility. It can apply to the browser compatibility and to platform compatibility. Maintainability, performance under load, data management, localization and internationalization, and others. So, answering what is the difference between functional and non-functional requirements, I can summarize everything like this. Functional requirements define specific features, behaviors, and interactions of the software system. They answer the question, what does the software do? Non-functional requirements specify qualities, constraints, and expectations about how the software system should perform. They answer the question, how well does the software perform its functions? Both types of requirements are crucial for guiding the software development process, ensuring that the final product meets user expectations, works as intended, and provides a positive user experience while adhering to the necessary constraints. So now, when you know what non-functional requirements are and how they are different from functional requirements, you understand the context. Let me ask ChatGPT to generate them for us. Please generate non-functional requirements for the current user story. Taking into account ChatGPT is aware about the context of discussion, it will easily understand what a current user story is, and you can see that we have non-functional requirements generated. If you would start to read them, all of them make perfect sense. But be careful, probably if you would put all of this in user story, developer will spend only a day just to read all of this. I'm not saying like it is not needed, but probably some of the non-functional requirements will be part of your common definition of done, and you wouldn't need to repeat yourself in each user story. What is a definition of done? In my project management course, I have separate lesson about definition of ready and definition of done, and these concepts are beyond the topic of today's lesson. I can just quickly remind you what definition of done is just to help you understand the context. The definition of done is a set of criteria that a software development team defines to determine when a user story or a task is considered complete and ready for delivery. It outlines the requirements that must be met before work can be considered finished and potentially released to users or stakeholders. For example, such requirements as accessibility, localization and internationalization, responsiveness. These ones will be the common for most of the user stories for sure, and there will not be need to repeat them in each user story. But you're the manager and you're the one to decide what to do, because you know people you work with better than me. Probably for your team, it will be easier to have this description in each user story. Who knows? So, on the example of product listing page, we learned how to use ChatGPT to generate requirements, starting from the feature specification document and ending with a detailed description of functional and non-functional requirements inside the user story. You can do the same exercise for other user stories. This will be a part of your homework that will help you to get more practical experience of working with ChatGPT. So now I have enough content to prepare everything for my team. Just give me a couple of minutes, I would put recording on pause and we'll get back to you soon. I want to move feature specification to our knowledge base that we created in previous lesson and create all necessary user stories and show you the result. In previous lesson, together with the ChatGPT, we created knowledge base structure, and under engineering, I have section for business analysis. I decided to put all feature specifications under this section. The same approach with the document info is applied here. Document owner, who reviewed, who approved, actual status, everything is in place. You may think that this is just a formality, but believe me, such approach will help you when your team will grow and you would need to rely on systems to ensure efficient communication. Because when you have small team, within small organization, you can just come to the person that sits next to you and ask him or her what is happening here on the page, and that's it. But in big organizations, when you deal with multiple stakeholders and want to take into consideration all wishes of everyone, and you need to put the final dot in the discussion, it is better to reflect who was involved in the discussions, who was approver, and confirmed that this feature specification is approved. You know, I would rather spend additional time to take UI designs and inserted them here, and I would highlight the key UI elements and put numbers next to them and would give a description to each element. Theoretically, you can do like this, and I believe your team will say thanks to you. But there is another trap that you need to be aware about. Always remember, and I repeat, Always remember that writing documentation, drawing designs, it is just a half of the work. The next half of the work is to support all this documentation. Remember, the more documentation you have, the more efforts you need to put on daily basis to support this documentation and keep it consistent. If you wanna ask me how to find the right balance between the documentation and agility, I won't be able to answer you because this formula simply doesn't exist. As you would get more experience as a project manager and you would have your own style, you would feel it. I prefer to create so-called live documentation that is based on the BDD scenarios and that is updated together with the development and the automated test suites. But sometimes I am dealing with projects where we have strict regulations, or I deliver work for our customers working on the outsource, and I need to pack product together with the full documentation, and the customer will decide what they wanna do with all this documentation and how they wanna support it. So, as I said, it depends on multiple factors. All this description on the page is from ChatGPT, and it is related to the functionality of the product listing page. And as usual, I am going to share with you the reference to the content of this page. You can find the link in attachments to the lesson and read all descriptions. That's why I don't see a lot of reasons me going over each line here. At the bottom here I inserted the list of user stories. Do you remember in previous lesson I described advantages of Confluence by Atlassian? And one of the advantages was easy integration with other Atlassian products. In the previous lesson we also learned what macros are in Confluence. So in this case, I just insert Jira macros and write Jira query to get all user stories where parent feature is a product listing page. But before being able to do this, you need to connect your Jira project with Confluence Space. How to do this? Let me show it to you. Go to the Jira project that you want to connect to the Confluence Space. In the sidebar, you can find menu that is called Project Pages. Click on it. And here you would see a big call to action button with the label Connect to the Confluence. Click on it and select the Confluence space that you want to connect with. By the way, as you can see, I changed the name of the Confluence space that we created in the previous lesson. If you want to change the name of your Confluence space too, I will show you how you can do it. In Confluence space, click on Space Settings. Then click Space Details in Manage Space section, and then click Edit Space Details. And here you can change the name of your space. You can find a bunch of other configurations here. I recommend you to spend some time just by navigating between different menus and learn what other configurations are available for modification here. I will not do this right now because it would take significant amount of time and it will be hard for you to remember all the possible configurations. It will be better if we learn required configurations gradually during the course on real examples. So let me get back to our feature specification page. I was talking about adding Jira macro here using Jira query language to extract only those tickets from Jira that you need. And if you don't know how to write this query using Jira query language, you shouldn't be worried about it, because ChatGPT will also help us with this too. You can ask ChatGPT to do it instead of you. Let me show you how. Write GQL to fetch all issues with story type where parent epic has ID SIP28. And here's GQL query that you can use to create your own filter in Jira. If you don't want to use GQL, you can use filter capabilities in Jira. But anyway, this sounds like a topic for a separate lesson. We are going to have lessons about Jira, and I'm going to cover all Jira details in those lessons, including Jira query language, filtering, and searching. You can edit this Jira macro. If you want, you can configure different display options. For example, you can configure which columns you would like to show in the table and which fields you don't want to show. Also, you can configure maximum amount of items you want to see on the page before pagination will be applied. All configurations here are self-descriptive. Even in case you would have any questions, please do not hesitate to post your questions below the video and I will be happy to answer. So in summary, I have feature specification and list of user stories that will be updated in real time on one page. And everyone who will visit this page will be able to navigate into each specific user story to get more details about what is going on there, what is the latest status, and what are detailed requirements for the specific piece of the functionality. That's all what I wanted to share with you today. Let's review your homework that will help you to get more practical experience as a project manager and get better understanding of how you can interact with the ChatGPT. For your homework, I would ask you to do the following things. Generate feature specifications for other features for our imaginary project that we're working on, Online Shop Wild Orange. Here I need you to turn on your fantasy and imagination. Think about other features of online store, affiliate program, registration of B2C customers, registration of B2B customers, checkout flow, and many other different things. And again, if you have doubts or lack of experience with e-commerce applications, try to chat with GPT and brainstorm about features of our online store. The second task for homework is document feature specifications in the knowledge base. I want you to get practical experience in the documentation. After generating feature specification with ChatGPT, document it in the knowledge base. The goal of this exercise is to motivate you get more familiar with the different formatting tools of the knowledge base. In the previous lesson I told you that you can select any tool for knowledge base you like the most. So no matter whether you are going to use Confluence or any other tool to solve this task, just understand how selected tool works and try to format feature specification to achieve maximum readability, simplicity, and clarity. The third task is generate details for user stories, functional and non-functional requirements. Read them. This will help you to get more experience. Try to use BDD format of requirements and acceptance criteria format. In the similar way like we did in the lesson, generate at least few user stories in order to get more experience in user story description. That's all regarding the homework. In case you would have any questions during the homework implementation, please let me know and I will be happy to answer your questions. You can post questions right below this video. And now let's recap what we have learned in this lesson. Today we learned different formats for requirements description. Special focus was on the feature specification. I showed you how you can create feature specification with the help of ChatGPT. We also generated a user story with the help of ChatGPT. I explained how you can use BDD format for description of functional requirements. We also learned the difference between functional and non-functional requirements. And at the end of the lesson, I showed you how you can connect Jira project to Confluence Space and use Jira macro. That's all for this lesson. Thanks a lot for your attention. Have a great day and see you in the next lesson.